The Gate of Orectar. The gate loomed as an enormous dark edifice in the distance. The monumental slate-gray stone pillars dominated the landscape, disappearing into the haze of swirling dust that had replaced the clouds. Between the pillars stood a colossal oaken door, bounded with dark iron. "Why does the gate need to be so big?" I asked. My voice was small against the enormity of the structure before me. As if in answer, the ground shook, and fissures snaked and forked their way up the pillars, the tops of which were swallowed by the haze of dust in the sky. I wondered if the gate was going to fall, and I hoped we weren't under it if it did. As we drew closer, I spotted Satan standing in front of the giant doors. He was holding something up to the side of his face and having an animated conversation with it. When we were close enough to see him clearly, I realized that it was a cell phone. "I'm sure we can work something out," he said, tugging at his collar. "There's no need to..." "Yeah, I understand that, but..." "Satan!" Miss Hatchetface yelled. Satan spun around on his heel and goggled at us. "What the hell are you guys doing here?" he asked, his voice full of dumb shock. "You shouldn't say 'what the hell' in front of Sarah," Miss Hatchetface chastised. "It's okay. I'm used to it." "Okay. But seriously, you guys shouldn't be here right now." "We don't want to be here," Miss Hatchetface said. "But you sealed the portal back to Earth." Satan looked at the crumbling gate behind him nervously before replying. "All right, I'll unseal it, but you have to promise not to..." The ground shook violently enough to send us all staggering as we tried to keep our balance, and the cracks in the pillars deepened and forked like errant lightning bolts. Pieces of stone crashed down from the sky like deadly rain. No, Satan said into the cell phone. "I'm not ignoring you. Some friends of mine just showed up and I understand that. Listen, now's not really a good time for the apocalypse. Do you think that maybe we could... What? Earth? But I don't see how that's... But that's... How is that possible? No, I'm not questioning your judgment, but... Okay, I'll let him know." Satan tried to press the hang-up button, but dropped the phone in the sand by mistake. Damn it! I hate these stupid touchscreens. They're completely impossible to use if you have claws. "Satan, what the hell is going on?" Miss Hatchetface demanded. Satan's brow furrowed and he scratched nervously at the back of his neck. Well, the Elder God seems to have, awoken. And you know how the big boss is, always apocalypse this and mass genocide that." "The Elder God?" gasped Miss Hatchetface. She bit her lip and her face went ghost white. "How did that happen?" "Well, you know Jerry." "Jerry who?" "Jerry the intern." "Satan, there are like 8 interns named Jerry. He's the one with the axe in his head." "Okay, what about him?" "Well, he was supposed to perform the rite of everlasting slumber a couple weeks ago, but the goat he slaughtered was actually just a llama. Turns out, Jerry isn't so smart. Maybe it's the axe my daughter put in his head." "So, the Elder God woke up. Aren't there safeguards against that sort of thing?" "Yeah, but, well, you know Gary the intern?" Miss Hatchetface sighed. "I don't want to know. So, the Elder God is up and planning to demolish hell? Is that it?" "Well..." Satan tugged at his collar. "Well, what?" "Yeah, and also Earth, but it's okay. I've got a plan." "Oh, no." "It's easy. All you've got to do is..." Satan's voice was drowned out as the great oaken door of Orectar cracked and bulged in the center, sending giant splinters of wood flying off like missiles. We turned and ran backwards as the wood groaned, and the colossal doors burst off of the hinges with a sound like angry thunder, crashing to the ground and sending up a red cloud of choking dust. An icy wind blew from the gate, and when the dust cleared, we beheld the Elder God. The creature was a nightmare. an oily black monstrosity that distorted the reality around it, its indeterminate form shifting and moving like a shadow. It was colossal beyond imagining, and so black that it seemed to swallow the very light around it. I had to do a double take as the next being came striding out of the netherworld gate. It was a human woman, dressed in a black, form-fitting blazer and long pencil skirt. I looked around for Satan to explain, but I couldn't see him amongst the rubble. I wondered if he had been crushed by a falling rock. The woman checked her clipboard and pushed her wire-rimmed glasses up to her nose with a pencil. "Is there a Miss Sarah Rogers present?" Yes," Sarah said. The secretary glanced up over her glasses. "Hello, Miss Rogers. I am the executive assistant of Mr. Uznok, the World Eater." Sarah wrinkled up her nose. "Okay. First off, Mr. Uznok wanted to extend his sincerest apologies that you were nearly crushed to death by a troll demon earlier today. Mr. Uznok simply wanted to invade the mind of the demon to communicate with you. However, as I'm sure you are very well aware, a homicidal fury is an unfortunate side effect of netherworld mind control." Sarah goggled at the woman. "I was almost crushed to death because of a side effect?" she asked. "We maintain that the convenience of netherworld mind control outweighs the side effect profile." "Okay, well, why did he want to talk to me?" The secretary checked her clipboard again. "It seems Mr. Uznok had the Earth scheduled for demolition this Wednesday." "Today is Wednesday." "So it is. Unfortunately, we were not able to demolish the Earth on schedule, as a netherworld refugee is still at large within that realm. As such, the Earth cannot be destroyed at this time." Sarah frowned and scratched her head. "But what does this have to do with me?" she asked. The secretary checked her clipboard before replying. "We have the refugee listed as Mrs. Annie Rogers." Sarah's eyes went wide. "Mom?" A royal kidnapping. "Are you telling me that my ex-wife is from the netherworld?" I asked. "How is that even possible?" The secretary frowned and looked down at her clipboard. She thumbed through a couple of pages before looking back up at me. "We had a foreign exchange program set up with the University of Arizona in 1987. "I met my wife at the University of Arizona in 1987. "Well, there you go." Wait a second. Isn't that the year all those students went missing for 2 months and came back possessed by demons? Then it was covered up by the administration? "I don't know anything about that." "Really seems like you would." The secretary cleared her throat. "The netherworld is not legally responsible for any unfortunate demon possession events," she said, voice flat and uninterested as if she were reciting a memorized speech. "Those students signed waivers." "They waived their rights to not be possessed by demons?" "Nobody ever reads the waivers," she said, shrugging her shoulders. "In any case, given that you are her ex-husband, Uznok has decided to task you with locating her and returning her to the netherworld so that the Earth can be destroyed. In the meantime, as a descendant of a netherworld being, your daughter will stay here." "What?" I shouted. "Don't worry, Mr. Rogers. We have an excellent daycare center." "This is unacceptable," Frank and Teddy roared. "I will not abandon my charge to the dangers of the netherworld." "I can assure you that it is perfectly safe," the secretary said. She crouched down and put on a big plastic grin as she looked at Sarah. "Here, girl," she said in a high-pitched voice. Sarah put her hands on her hips and stuck out her bottom lip in a pout. "I'm not a dog." "Fine," the secretary replied, standing back and making a note on her clipboard. She snapped her fingers and an orb of shining black light materialized from nowhere, growing to envelop Sarah. "Hey, stop that!" I yelled. Frankenteddy ran at the orb, but before he could reach it, the light had collapsed into nothing and Sarah had vanished. The secretary and Erznak took advantage of our stunned silence to slink back through what remained of the gate. The shattered stone stubs of the pillars crumbled into dust as we stared at them. What the hell do we do now? The others shrugged. Satanic artifacts. I walked over to where Sarah had been standing and stared at the ground in stunned disbelief. My stomach had turned to churning water, and my head was filled with a dizzy, buzzing sensation that overrode all thought. As I looked down at the empty patch of ground, I noticed a small piece of black plastic poking out of the sand. I bent down and pulled out the TV remote of minor inconveniences. I slid it into my back pocket, remembering all the hilarious tortures that Sarah had inflicted on Frankenteddy with it. My heart ached as I wondered if I'd ever see her again. Then, when a golden gleam caught my eye, my melancholy mood vanished in an instant. "I've got it!" I yelled. "What's that?" replied Miss Hatchetface. I lifted up my left hand and showed everyone the BFF ring around my finger. "This. Sarah gave it to me back on Earth. She said all I have to do is rub the ring and it will instantly transport me to wherever she is." Miss Hatchetface knitted her brow and turned down the corners of her mouth. "Are you sure that's a good idea? Even if you do manage to get there, what are you going to do next? How are you going to rescue Sarah from Erznak? He's an elder god and you're, well..." "A wimp?" Frankenteddy put in helpfully. "Thanks, Frankenteddy." "You are welcome, Lord Rogers." I stared down at the thick golden ring on my finger. A part of me knew that they were right, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to try at least. I rubbed the signet of the ring, and I was lifted up into the air. I hung there for a moment, totally motionless, before slamming into the ground. I spat out a mouthful of hell dust before the ring lifted me up again. "What the oof?" I said, slamming into the dirt again. "Take it off!" yelled Miss Hatchetface. I slammed into the ground 3 more times before I finally managed to slip the ring off my finger and toss it away. The ring rose up 1 more time before shooting through the ground like a bullet. "Yeah, we never got past beta testing on that," said Satan's voice. We looked around, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Satan? Where are you?" "I am under here," said Satan's disembodied voice. "Under? What do you mean? Oh." A pointed red tail was waving at us from beneath a giant boulder. "Yeah, I got crushed just a bit." "Are you gonna die?" "Well, that depends. Can evil ever truly die?" Maybe?" "No. The answer is no." "Well, that's a bummer." "It's a bummer that I'm not gonna die?" "It's a bummer that evil can never die." "This is a wonderfully philosophic conversation. I'd love to continue it after someone gets this giant rock off of me." "I've got it," said Miss Hatchetface. She stepped forward and pressed her hands against the rough gray stone of the boulder. With a heave and a grunt, she rolled the rock off of Satan. "Thanks," Satan said, standing up and making a poor attempt of unruffling his suit and brushing the dust off himself. "So, now that everything is settled, should we go back to Disneyland?" "What? Everything is not settled. Sarah's been kidnapped and taken to the netherworld." "Well, yeah. But you heard what Erznak's secretary said. As long as a netherworld refugee remains on Earth, it won't be destroyed. No Sarah, no apocalypse. Sorry about your daughter, but, you know, win some, lose some." "Win some, lose some?" said Miss Hatchetface. Her face had gone so red I thought that steam might start shooting out of her ears. She marched up to Satan and jabbed a finger at his chest. "That little girl trusted you, and I am not gonna just let you abandon her in the netherworld so that you can sweep your own screw-up under the rug. What would your mother say?" "My mother?" Satan tugged at his goatee. "I really don't see what she has to do with anything." "Oh no?
Well, why don't we call her and find out? No. Satan yelled so suddenly that it made me jump. I hardly think that's necessary. We can just go find Sarah's mom and see if she knows how to prevent the apocalypse. That way, it's a happy ending for everyone involved. And, no one's mother needs to get involved. I was only joking anyway, trying to lighten the mood, you know. Wow. I really didn't expect the CEO of Hell to be afraid of his mother. I'm not afraid of her. I have detected insincerity in your voice, Frankenteddy interrupted. It appears that you are trying to tell a lie. I shall assist you so that your deception is not detected. Frankenteddy turned to me. Satan is not afraid of his mother, he bellowed. Thanks, Frankenteddy, said Satan. Frankenteddy gave him a salute. So, why are you afraid of your mother? I asked. Gee, look at the time, said Satan, checking his bare wrist. We'd better get up to Earth and start looking for that netherworld refugee. You're not even wearing a watch. How on earth are we ever going to find my ex-wife? Don't worry. I know a guy. But before we can do that, we need to grab a couple of things from my old office first. How the hell are we going to go to your old office? It's on the other side of hell. Don't worry. I've got this. Satan began rummaging in the pockets of his sports jacket and pulled out a wad of empty hamburger wrappers. No, not there. Hold on a second. He began fishing around his other pockets. Ah, there they are. He pulled out a handful of what looked like winged horses. What good are a bunch of toy horses going to do for us? I asked. Just shut up and pay attention. They expand in the heat. Satan held his palm flat and blue flames began to swirl and burn around the horses. The little miniatures grew to the size of golf balls at first, leaping out of his palm and onto the ground, running and jumping around in circles as they continued to grow at an alarming rate. Soon, there were 4 full-size Pegasus before us, snorting and stretching their wings, haunches twitching as they anxiously pawed at the ground. They were magnificent creatures. Their coats were night black and glimmered with a silver luster in the surrounding flames of hell. Their muscles rippled as they moved, and their flowing, silky black manes brushed against their thickly corded necks as they tossed their heads from side to side. All right, climb on. Isn't there a saddle or something? Don't be a wimp. Just hold on tight to their manes. You'll be fine. I took a deep, steadying breath and pulled myself up onto the back of the Pegasus. I twisted its silky mane around my fingers as its muscles quivered beneath me. The hair was softer than a feather, yet it felt stronger than steel. Satan and Miss Hatchetface climbed aboard their mounts as well, and the horses began to snort and paw the ground impatiently. Frankenteddy, however, was leaning away from his Pegasus, leering warily as if he was afraid it might suddenly lunge out and eat him. Are you all right, Frankenteddy? I have never flown before, he said, his normally monotonous voice betraying a fearful tremor. There's nothing to it. Look, even Darren can do it. What's that supposed to mean? Miss Hatchetface shot me a quick apologetic look, then turned her attention back to Frankenteddy. What if it drops me? I could die. You're made of stuffing, said Miss Hatchetface. You'd just bounce right off the ground. Frankenteddy shook his head and backed away from the beast. I am a bear. Bears are meant to stay on the ground. I thought you were a demon, I said. This is not the time for technicalities, Darren. Look, we really don't have time for this. Miss Hatchetface, why don't you just take Frankenteddy with you? What? But I don't even... That is an acceptable compromise. Miss Hatchetface sighed and said, All right then. She leaned over the side of her Pegasus and offered an outstretched hand to Frankenteddy. He took her hand in his 2 huge paws and she pulled him unceremoniously onto her mount's back. He wrapped her arms so tightly around her stomach that she began to cough and sputter for air. Frankenteddy, you're crushing me. I don't want to fall. If you choke me to death, you're definitely gonna fall. Frankenteddy slightened his grip a minuscule amount. Enough of this nonsense. Is everybody ready? No, we all replied in unison. That's the spirit. He squeezed his legs around the Pegasus' sides and shouted, "Yah!" Upon hearing his command, the Pegasus began to gallop forward, flapping its wings in powerful strokes that kicked up clouds of dust around it. It kicked its paw off the ground and began to soar upwards. After 2 less than enthusiastic yahs, Miss Hatchetface and I were racing upwards after Satan. I struggled to hang on as my Pegasus soared higher and higher. The wind rushed through my hair as the ground fell away beneath me, and the mighty wings beat their way into the sky. Once we had nearly reached the clouds, the Pegasus leveled out. I looked down at the landscape below. The giant steel gray river had receded behind us as we sailed over blood-red canyons. Flying the Pegasus was a wonderful feeling. It was steady and strong beneath me as I sailed through the bracing cold air above the clouds in hell. We made quick time on the Pegasus, and sooner than I had expected, we were alighting at the ruins of Satan's former office. "Satan?" said Miss Hatchetface, dismounting from her Pegasus. "What are we doing here? As far as I can see, there's nothing left." "Right. That's the point. As far as you can see, there's nothing left." He paced around the floor of his former office slowly, squinting at the ground. He held his hands out in front of him as he walked, as if he was a blind man trying to avoid a pit. "Aha!" he said, stopping on an empty patch of dirt. He crouched down and traced an elaborate pattern in the sand. The ground began to swell at the spot where he had touched. Then the dirt began to fall away as a large steel safe rose from the ground and locked into place with a thud. Satan carefully brushed the red hell dust off the front and began twisting a dial back and forth. Let's see," he muttered as he fiddled with the knob. 13, 33, 31. No, that's not right. 33, 31, 13? No, not right either. Oh, I know. 66, 66, 66. Damn it! Miss Hatchetface rolled her eyes. "You forgot the combination?" Satan scratched his head. "Not exactly. I just don't remember what it is right now." "Just get out of the way." She shoved Satan to the side and gripped the steel cross-shaped handle of the safe, pulling herself up and placing her feet on either side of the thick iron door. The steel bulged and groaned, and thick cords stuck out from her neck as she pulled. Then, with a final shriek of twisting metal, the safe door and Miss Hatchetface both tore off and plunked to the ground. Miss Hatchetface pushed the bent safe door off herself and stood up with a grunt. Satan twisted his goatee in his fingers. "Wow, that safe wasn't secure at all. I should really get my money back." "I don't think the warranty covers ripped-off doors," I said, eyeing the torn and twisted piece of metal Miss Hatchetface had left lying in the dirt. What was in that thing anyway? Satan reached into the safe and slid out a slender black leather briefcase with gold latches. He gently set the briefcase down on the dirt. "This was in it," he said. Then, crouching over the suitcase and grinning, "Are you guys ready for this?" And judging by everything that's happened so far, probably not. "Too bad, because it's about to happen anyway." He popped the latches on the briefcase and we all leaned in to see what was inside. Resting against a plush backing of fine red felt were various odd pieces of hard candy and bubblegum in brightly colored wrappers, a set of ratty old brown and gray mittens, and several pairs of outlandishly styled sunglasses, along with other miscellaneous bits of junk. Satan?" "Yes, Daniel? What the hell is all this garbage?" Satan arched his eyebrows in mock offense. "Garbage? I'll have you know that these are some of the most powerful artifacts of satanic magic in existence. We've got bubblegum fire, fire-breathing fireballs, the mittens of Kung Fu legend, not to mention the sunglasses of soul evisceration." "The sunglasses of what?" Soul evisceration, Satan said, grinning. Do you think that we could do without those? It seems a little bit like overkill. Are you sure? They're the coolest looking artifact. Yeah, I'm sure. All right. He looked over the large selection of sunglasses in the suitcase before picking up a wire-rimmed pair with round, blue reflective lenses. I'm pretty sure these are the ones, he said, tossing them aside. He picked up the pair of ratty old mittens and held them out to me. Hey, Daniel, want to try the mittens of Kung Fu legend? Actually, yeah, that sounds pretty useful. The Satan tossed me the mittens and I caught them, turning them over in my hands as I examined them. They were old and brown, with ugly gray stripes and frayed loose ends of yarn. I slipped them onto my hands, and for a moment I was surprised to find that they were quite comfortable. That feeling quickly subsided as my muscles tensed and forced me into a fighting stance. Wow, these things really work. I was admiring the gloves when a yarn-covered fist popped me in the chin. What the... Oof, I said, punching myself in the stomach. My two hands seized the back of my shirt and lifted me in the air, sending me flipping over backwards and dropping me onto my stomach. Oh, right. I forgot. They're programmed to attack human DNA. Well, how do you take them off? I shouted as the glove slapped my face back and forth. Just take them off, said Satan. I'm trying, but I don't exactly have the use of my hands right now. The gloves grabbed me by the collar again and yanked me to my feet. Miss Hatchetface, Satan said distractedly as he eyed the artifacts in the case. Miss Hatchetface grabbed my arms and pinned them behind my back, yanking the gloves off and stomping them into the dirt. I collapsed on the ground in a heap of exhaustion. Satan was still mining his artifacts, and taking them out of the case one by one to goggle them like a kid with his favorite toys. Sorry about that, Daniel. You could have really gotten hurt back there. Lucky you're too weak to do any real harm, huh? Yeah, I guess. And Satan pulled out an uncoiled black leather belt with a jewel-encrusted golden buckle in the shape of a snake. Ooh, check this out. It's the belt of master seduction. Want to give it a try? Not even a little, I replied. Really? But, oh, wait a second. This is actually the belt of castration. Close call there, huh, Derek? I hate you, Satan. I love you too, buddy. I pulled myself into a sitting position and rested my head in my hands. So, now that we've got your artifacts, what are we supposed to do now? I know a guy who can find your ex-wife. After that, I say we knock her over the head and cart her off to the netherworld to trade for your daughter. You really think it's a good idea to assault the daughter of the elder god? Miss Hatchetface said in disapproving tones. Well, what are we supposed to do? I don't know, maybe talk to her instead? Well, what am I going to do with all these weapons then? Don't worry, I'm sure you can find some use for them. Whatever. Anyway, to find your ex-wife, we need to go see my friend, the hermit. You call your friend the hermit? I asked. Of course, that's his name. His name is... the hermit. Yeah, it's a pseudonym, like Madonna or Cher, or Satan. Exactly. My real name is actually Arnold. Really? No. Hermits and Snorks. We traveled far and long to get to the hermit's abode, a small, cliffside cottage on the coast of Maryland that looked like it was made out of mud and smelled like it was made out of something else. We all sat hunched over on tiny stools as we waited for the hermit to return from the kitchen. He had insisted on making us tea, even though we had all stressed that we were in a hurry. Don't worry, it'll only take a couple of hours. We sat for the 3 hours while he made the tea, which smelled like a cross between a fragrant bouquet of roses and a whiff of garlic fart. He set the chipped teacups in front of us on deformed, home-knit cozies made out of vomit green yarn. So, he said, sitting down on a tree stump in the middle of the room and taking a sip of the foul tea. "What can I do for you?" "We need to locate a netherworld being." "What?" he said, spitting a little bit of the tea back into the cup. "Why would you want to do that?" "It's a complicated situation. The details are not really important. What is important is that we must locate the ex-wife of Lord Rogers, so that we may return her to the netherworld. We hope to obtain his daughter in trade. Perhaps we will bring about the apocalypse, but I am optimistic that Urznak the World Eater will be open to negotiation." This time the hermit dropped his teacup, spilling the foul liquid all over the table stump in front of him. "Did you just say you're gonna bring about the apocalypse?" No. It's just a "Yes," bellowed Frankenteddy. "Urznak the World Eater will not destroy the earth as long as the refugee is present, but we intend to return her. I must admit fully that I do not understand the plan." "Urznak the World Eater? I thought he was supposed to be in eternal slumber. What happened?" "Well," Satan began, "you know Jerry the intern?" The hermit sighed. "You should really consider firing that guy. He's my nephew. I keep him on as a favor to my sister." "Oh. So can you help us locate the being or not?" Miss Hatchetface asked. "I might be able to, for a price." Miss Hatchetface folded her arms across her chest and scowled. "The price is that I don't put my foot through your face." The hermit started and stared at Miss Hatchetface in wide-eyed silence for a moment. Well, it's hard to argue with violence, I guess. So who is this netherworld being?" "It's my ex-wife." "Are you serious? That sounds like a bad joke." "It appears that many of the jokes in this story are bad." "Thanks, Frankenteddy," I said, and then, turning to the hermit, "Yeah, I'm serious." "All right, well, if you're really determined for me to help you stalk your ex-wife, I guess I've got no choice." He eyed Miss Hatchetface nervously. "I'll need a few things first, though." He patted the pockets of his raggedy coat. "Does anybody have a goblet of undying embers?" "No." "Scrying glass of eternal misery?" "Nope." "Loofah?" No. That's too bad. I was hoping you could spare me a trip to the store. Anyway, we'd better get started. Give me your hand, Darren." I offered my hand to the hermit. He seized my wrist with his own hand gloved in a fingerless yarn mitten and started sprinkling salt in my palm as he tunelessly hummed. "Good. Now that your palm is nice and tasty, we can get started with the scrying snork." "The what?" This." The hermit pulled a small, scaly blue lizard creature from one of his many pockets and placed it in my palm. The lizard licked up the salt, belched out blue flames, and then said in a grave, croaky voice, "The netherworld creature is in the Florida Keys." The creature paused for a moment. "And you should moisturize." I try, but it's the dry air." "Well, it'll be better down in Florida." "I hate Florida." "Yeah, me too." Florida. The thing about netherworld beings is that they bring the spirit of chaos and insanity with them wherever they go. It infects the land, is seeping into the soil and driving every living thing to the brink of depraved lunacy. Before long, even the most ordered and peaceful places in the world would become broken down garbage heaps of chaos. Basically, what I'm saying is that we should have known your ex-wife was in Florida. I stared out the window of the car as Satan finished his speech, watching the warm glow of the sun as it filtered through the shadows of the palms that flitted past us. It was early morning now, and the warm, wet air made my skin feel sticky. It smelled like the ocean. I turned toward Satan. Are you saying that my ex-wife is the reason Florida's so messed up? Well, it's either that or all the cocaine. My money's on the cocaine. Mine too. It really is amazing, isn't it? Sure, Satan, but there's still no way for us to tell exactly where in the Florida Keys my ex-wife is. It could be a long search. Oh, I've got that covered, Satan answered. He plunged a hand into his pocket and pulled out a writhing mass of dark blue scales. Is that the snork? Sure is. The snork ruffled its scales indignantly and looked up at Satan. You know, you could have just asked me where she was back at the hermit shack. There was no need for you to stuff me in your pocket and Shanghai me off to Florida. What were you thinking? I try not to think if possible. It's incredibly unpleasant. So, you know where she is? I asked the snork. Of course I know where she is. I'm a snork, aren't I? You're the snorkiest. So, where is this girl? She owns an outdoor beach bar called Cabana Anna's. Where is that? Take a left on 17th Street and follow it straight down to the coast. You hear that, Frank and Teddy? Satan called to the front seat. We're heading to Cabana Anna's. I better hang a left up here on 17th Street. Roger, Frank and Teddy bellowed. The tires squealed as he jerked the wheel to the left. So, I began. How did we decide Frank and Teddy was driving again? Well, obviously, he's the least suspicious. Does he even have a license? Sort of. What does that mean? It means don't worry, Satan said, staring out the window. As if on cue, red and blue lights flashed behind us. Great, that's all we need right now. Frank and Teddy's eyes were as big as dinner plates as he turned around and hugged the rear of the driver's seat, watching the lights. I have never seen such a glorious luminescent display. Is it perhaps the mating ritual of these noble iron beasts? What's he talking about? Asked the snork. He thinks cars are animals. I waved my hand in front of Frank and Teddy's face to get his attention. It's the police, Frank and Teddy. You need to stop the car. Yes, Lord Rogers. I shall stop the car at once. Frank and Teddy stomped on the brakes, sending the car into a long, screeching skid. Time seemed to slow as we spun out in circles, the road and the surrounding cars flashing in and out of view as the car careened off course. We stopped facing the wrong way at the end of 50-foot skid marks. The smell of burnt rubber filled the air. I didn't mean for you to stop the car like that. Your instructions were unclear, protested Frank and Teddy. The police officer stepped out of his cruiser and slammed the door behind him. He was heavy-set, with a gelled-up crew cut and a spat of ugly freckles over his nose. His guts swung back and forth as he power-walked to our car. He placed his hands on the inside of the open window and leaned over. He squinted his eyes and wrinkled up his nose. Just what in the hell was that? Sorry, officer, he's not from around here. The officer looked at me and squinted his eyes so tight that I wondered if he could still see me. He spat in the gravel and said, I don't remember asking you anything. Turning back to Frank and Teddy, he said, License and registration, please. Frank and Teddy began rummaging around somewhere I couldn't see. He produced a thin, laminated card and handed it to the officer. The officer scratched his head, then spat on the sidewalk again. Is this some sort of joke? What do you mean? The officer took a deep breath, eyed the license, and then looked back at Frank and Teddy. This says that you're licensed to ride abhorrent nightmare creatures from the realms of eternal sorrow. That is correct. The officer tossed the license to the ground. I really don't have time for this. Step out of the vehicle and take that stupid bear head off while you're at it. As you desire. He pushed the door open and climbed out, and with a loud, ripping sound, removed his head and held it out in front of him, so that it was at eye level with the officer. Cotton spilled out of the rip and onto the asphalt below. "What should I do next?" said Frank and Teddy's head. Even the officer's freckles went white. He clutched absently at his chest and mouthed words, but only gasps came out. "Just," he forced through gritted teeth. "Just go. Should I put my head back on first?" "Yeah, please do," the officer choked out. Frank and Teddy lifted his head up and placed it back on his shoulders, twisting it left and right to make sure that it was on straight. He climbed back in the car and put on his seatbelt before leaning out the window. "By the way, your beast mating display was excellent. He would make a fine stud in hell." With a screech of tires, we left the terrified officer behind, standing alone on the side of the road. I sighed and redirected my attention to the bright blue sky and the palm trees that dotted the side of the street. It wasn't 5 minutes later until our real problems began. I noticed Satan eyeing the rearview mirror with a frown on his face. "There it is again." "There, what is?" "You see that black SUV?" He motioned with his head. I turned around and looked out the back windshield to see a black SUV with tinted windows a few car lengths behind us. "Yeah, what about it?" "It's been following us." "You think the netherworld sent them?" asked Miss Hatchetface. "Without a doubt. They must be planning to follow us to Annie and return her to the netherworld themselves, so that Urzok can destroy the Earth without our interference." "What do we do?" "There's only one thing to do," Satan said. "Frank and Teddy?" "Yes, Lord Satan." "Engage evasive maneuvers." "As you wish, Lord Satan." We were thrown backwards against our seats as Frank and Teddy put the pedal to the metal and began weaving through the traffic like a NASCAR driver on speed. The SUV behind us did the same, and the air filled with the sounds of revving engines and squealing tires as we raced through the busy city streets. We bounced around the inside of the car as Frank and Teddy jerked the wheel to the left and right, but the black SUV refused to abandon its dogged pursuit. "Frank and Teddy!" Satan yelled above the sound of the squealing tires. "Yes, Lord Satan." "Engage Sparrow mode." "Are you sure, Lord Satan?" "Yes, do it already." Frank and Teddy seized the gear shift and flipped the top up to reveal a secret compartment I'd never seen before. He mashed the big red button at the center, and the car lurched forward. I looked behind us to see a plume of flames blasting out from the exhaust, and the front of the car began to lift off the road. I dug my fingernails into the seat leather as the rear wheels left contact with the asphalt, and the car lifted off into flight. The steering wheel split in half at the top and the bottom, and extended outwards along a movable extension that resembled airplane controls. "Pull up, Frank and Teddy!" shouted Satan. Frank and Teddy jerked down on the new steering apparatus, and the car rocketed up into the sky. He turned the yoke to the left, and the car took a careening left turn away from the road below. "Get us above the clouds!" "Affirmative." He yanked the wheel down again, and we were slammed backwards as the car began a steep vertical ascent. We shot through the bottom layer of clouds, and Frank and Teddy leveled the car out, flying us smoothly along a feathery canopy of white, with clear blue sky above. "Excellent driving, Frank and Teddy. Let's see those netherworld goons try to follow that." No sooner had the words left his mouth than 2 black SUVs bobbed up in the clouds behind us. "Oh no, they followed us. Frank and Teddy, re-engage evasive maneuvers." Frank and Teddy jerked the wheel to the right just as a beam of red light shot by my window, taking off the side view mirror. "We're under fire!" "I'm on it," Frank and Teddy roared back. Frank and Teddy pulled the car up into a loop, and my head slammed into the ceiling as we went upside down. I collapsed back into my seat as we came back right side up behind the 2 SUVs. "Now, Frank and Teddy, press the red button." "Which red button? You made all the buttons red." Well, duh, said Satan. A secret yellow or green button would be just lame.
Which button?
The one under the center console.
Frankenteddy flipped up the console and mashed the button with his enormous paw. 2 beams of golden light flashed out of the headlights and collided with one of the SUVs. Only it wasn't an SUV anymore, but a giant rubber ducky. The rubber ducky fell through the clouds to presumably crush whomever or whatever was unfortunate enough to be beneath it. Grinning, Satan clapped Frankenteddy on the shoulder. Nice shot, Frankenteddy. There was scarce time for celebration, though, as the other SUV did a 180-degree turn to face us, its rear view mirrors extending and transforming into 2 gigantic machine guns, its windshield popping out and expanding in front of the car like a shield, the machine guns poking out on either side. Frankenteddy fired the rubber ducky headlights once more, but they merely bounced off the shield and ricocheted off at an angle, striking an unfortunate seagull that happened to be in their way. A quick report from the machine guns had our engine pouring smoke. It stuttered, coughed, and died, and our car plunged through the shadows and began racing towards the ocean below.
Nobody panic,
shouted Satan. He grabbed the black leather briefcase from the floorboard and popped the latches open, pulling out a handful of pink-wrapped bubblegum.
Everybody take a piece,
he said, thrusting the gum into our hands. He popped a piece into his own mouth and began to chew vigorously.
What the hell are you doing, Satan? Just shut up and follow my lead,
he replied through a mouthful of bubblegum. We all popped the pieces of bubblegum into our mouths and began to chew it frantically. Satan opened his door and jumped out of the car. As he fell beside us, a large pink bubble issued from between his lips, slowing his descent as it grew bigger and bigger. We all followed suit, bailing out of the car and watching it fall below us as our bubbles grew above. A few minutes later, we had landed gently in the water and popped our bubbles. Frankenteddy had managed to pop his all over his face and was fighting against the sticky pink mass that had glued itself between his fur until Satan burned the gum off with a fire-breathing fireball. The salt water that soaked my hair stung as it touched my eyes. I brushed it off my forehead and looked at Satan as we all bobbled up and down in the ocean.
You destroyed my car. Well, look at the bright side. Now the netherworld agents can't track us. And besides, you've got insurance, don't you?
Yeah, but I don't think my insurance is going to pay out when I tell them it was shot down by secret agents from the netherworld. Satan shrugged his shoulders.
It could happen.
When did my car even get the ability to fly?
I made some discreet modifications before we went to Disneyland. It's a shame it got shot down. There were so many more cool buttons I wanted to try.
You mean while I was unconscious?
Yep.
What else did you do while I was unconscious?
Don't worry about it.
I sighed. So, do you have a secret jet ski artifact or something in that case of yours to help get us to shore?
Oh, that would be cool. But sadly, no. We're just gonna have to swim it.
Oh, wait a second. I might have something. He let the briefcase float on top of the water as he pulled out a little black sphere of glass and held it in front of his face. This should do the trick.
What is it?
Asked Miss Hatchetface.
It's a portable portal to the void dimension. All we have to do is crack it open, and we can send this water somewhere else and walk to shore.
Satan, we're in the ocean. If you send this water somewhere else, more is just going to keep coming.
No, Dexter. I mean we send all the water somewhere else.
Miss Hatchetface sighed.
You can't dry up an entire ocean just because you're too lazy to swim. Don't you have anything more practical? What's the point in having a portal to the void dimension if you never get to use it?
He complained as he put the sphere back into the case. He frowned as he scanned the rest of the artifacts. Suddenly, he plunged an entire arm into the case and pulled out a pair of bright yellow flippers, tossing them to Miss Hatchetface.
Whoa, how did you stick your whole arm in there?
Don't be stupid.
he replied, fishing out another pair of flippers. There's a portal to the suitcase dimension in there. He tossed me a pair of flippers a little too fast, and the rubber stung as it slapped into my chest. He fished out a pair of expensive-looking black ones for himself and flopped onto his back, sticking his feet up and pulling the flippers onto them. Come on, then. What are you guys waiting for?
Family reunion. I regarded the flippers warily, remembering the mittens of Kung Fu legend and belt of castration. I was just wondering if these things are gonna beat me to a bloody pulp once I put them on.
Don't be ridiculous. Not all satanic artifacts are coded to attack human DNA.
He paused for a moment and tugged at his goatee.
Wait a second. You'd better give those back.
I shook my head and floated the flippers back across the water to Satan. What about me? Where are my flippers?
Sorry, I don't have flippers in size ridiculous. You're just gonna have to hitch a ride behind Miss Hatchetface.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm hitching a ride with Miss Hatchetface. You can ferry Frank and Teddy. Frank and Teddy looked at Satan with puppy dog eyes. Satan scratched the back of his neck and sighed.
All right, fine.
Frank and Teddy swam over and locked Satan into a bear hug from behind, and I swam over and wrapped my arms around Miss Hatchetface's slender waist.
All right,
Satan said, squirming under Frank and Teddy's grasp.
The flippers of super speed activate.
There were a couple seconds where nothing happened, and then suddenly, the four of us lurched forward. We churned up a frothy wake as we shot towards the shore, rubber smacking hard into my shins and Frank and Teddy's. 10 minutes and 4 bruised shins later, we had washed up on the shore and begun to canvass the beach in search of Cabana Anna's. It was midday when we arrived. The air was wet and sticky, and a haze of heat shimmered 6 inches above the sand. Beachgoers lay baking in the sun, and girls wearing bikinis batted volleyballs around on makeshift courts. We attracted quite a lot of stares, and Satan had swapped his suit for a pair of swim trunks he had gotten from the briefcase. But Miss Hatchetface and I were still in the soaking wet clothes we'd been wearing when the car went down. And then, of course, there was Frank and Teddy. He was unused to seeing so much bare skin, and was complaining loudly about how self-conscious he was feeling about his fur. The staring eyes that his booming voice attracted only made him more self-conscious, until Satan was finally forced to look into the briefcase for a solution. He pulled out a piece of what looked like butterscotch-flavored hard candy and handed it to Frank and Teddy.
Here you go. Invisible butterscotch.
Frank and Teddy stared at the candy sitting in his enormous paw for a moment before popping the entire thing into his mouth, wrapper and all. So, am I invisible now? Miss Hatchetface and I looked from the still, very visible Frank and Teddy to Satan. He shot us a meaningful look and said,
Of course you are, Frank and Teddy.
Frank and Teddy wasted no time in shoving a huge, fluffy finger up his nose, and picking out a piece of cotton and flicking it aside. I am ready to be visible again.
Sure. Just spit the candy out.
Frank and Teddy did as he was bid, and we continued along the beach. As we looked for Cabana Anna's, Satan would periodically hold the briefcase up to his ear and have a furious whispered argument with it.
What the hell are you doing with that thing?
Asked Miss Hatchetface.
The Snork is in here. He's giving me directions. Why do you keep cursing him out? Apparently he resents being in a briefcase. He said some very unsavory things about my mother. Just concentrate. We need to get this thing over with already.
I am concentrating.
Cabana Anna's is right over there.
He pointed at a little tiki hut-styled bar with a hay roof and mostly vacant wooden bar stools. We started over towards the bar, but before we got there, we were waylaid by a group of 3 bikini-clad girls in their early 20s.
Hi,
said one of the girls.
My name's Emma.
She had bronze skin, light blonde hair, and a swimmer's body.
If I had been 10 years younger and significantly more attractive, I might have talked to her. But given the circumstances, I decided that the mission was more important. "Sorry," I said, trying to push past her. "I'm just heading to the bar over there." "That's fine, go ahead. We just wanted to talk to your friend." Satan grinned. "Well, I don't usually go for humans, but in this case..." Not you," Anna said, giving Satan a disdainful once-over. "I was talking about your tall friend." She turned to Frankenteddy and tossed her hair. "What's your name?"
"Frankenteddy," he bellowed.
"Oh, wow, your voice is so deep."
"My vocal cords were singed in the fires of hell."
Emma laughed, slapping Frankenteddy on the arm and letting her hand linger. "Oh my God, you are so funny. My friends and I are having a party later. You should come."
"I apologize, but I am on a mission to prevent the apocalypse."
Emma laughed again. "Oh, come on, come to our party. We can get you out of that hot suit and get some cool punch in you, and then..." Emma trailed off, motioning Frankenteddy to bend down so she could whisper in his ear. Frankenteddy's face changed as he listened to her whisper, until he suddenly stood up so fast and so straight, it was as if his spine had been electrified.
"What?"
he bellowed out.
"None of that sounds appealing to me."
Emma laughed again. "Well, if you change your mind," she said, reaching into her bikini top. She pulled out a lipstick pen and scribbled something on Frankenteddy's paw. She gestured her friends to come along, and they all walked off giggling. Frankenteddy looked down at his paw with a frown.
"Why would she write on me? I did nothing wrong."
Miss Hatchetface took Frankenteddy's huge paw in her hands, and a look of wry amusement crossed her face. "It's her phone number."
"Why would I want her phone number? She wrote on me."
"I guess you wouldn't," said Miss Hatchetface, laughing. "Humans are weird. Can we please just get on with this?" The corners of Miss Hatchetface's mouth lifted a bit. "Am I detecting a note of jealousy?"
"I'm evil," Satan replied.
"I don't have feelings.
Let's just go."
We trudged over to the bar, and Satan leaned on the counter, dinging the customer service bell over and over again. "You know," said the barmaid, "the more you ding it, the faster I go. Just watch." She reached up towards a bottle of tequila on the shelf, her movements crawling like a turtle. "You're very funny. I'm here to see the owner." "Oh, yeah?" the barmaid asked, still reaching for the tequila. "Why is that?" "It's top secret netherworld stuff. Apocalypse and all that. You wouldn't understand." The barmaid abandoned the tequila and turned around, embracing herself with hands on hips. "Okay, weirdo. If you're gonna do drugs, you can take it to another bar. We don't allow that stuff here." "Just get me the owner," Satan replied. "You're looking at her." "You? Hey, Darren, why didn't you tell me this was your ex-wife?" "That's not my ex-wife." For the first time, the barmaid looked at me. Her eyes got wide and her mouth fell open. Darren? How did you find me?" "What do you mean? You're not..." "What the fuck?" The barmaid's face began to change. Her nose grew smaller and turned upwards just a bit. Her eyes widened and changed color from green to blue. Her short black hair turned long and blonde, and her strong bone structure softened around the edges, her sharp jaw giving way to a plumper, younger-looking face. The barmaid was now my ex-wife, Annie. "Ooh, that's a neat trick. How do you do that?" Annie ignored him. "What are you doing here, Darren?" "I could ask you the same question." Annie looked around, worry wrinkles slowly creeping over her face. "Where's Sarah?" "Oh, so now you care where Sarah is. 5 years without a trace of you and now you're Miss Wonderful Parent? Bullshit." Hey, Miss Hatchetface interceded. "Is now really the time to argue? We need to focus on getting Sarah back." "Back? What do you mean back? Where is she?
Oh, nowhere you wouldn't know about, I said. Just kicking back and relaxing in the netherworld with Urznak the World Eater.
What? What is Sarah doing with my dad?
Your what? Formulating a plan. I pressed the palm of my hand to my aching forehead. So that's why Urznak wants you back? No wonder. You ran out on him just like you ran out on us.
Well, if I hadn't, you'd all be dead right now, along with everyone else you've ever met.
You know what? Right now, that doesn't seem like such a bad prospect. Annie groaned and rolled her eyes.
God, you're so good at playing the victim. You should be on TV. You can play a corpse on Law and Order.
And you can play, you know what? Screw you. Frankenteddy suddenly emitted a startling loud noise. Annie, Miss Hatchetface, and I all turned around to look at him. My apologies. Sometimes when I get uncomfortable, I make noises. Annie turned her finger back to me and pointed her finger at me. Miss Hatchetface was grinning up at Frankenteddy, and Annie looked put out. Satan was busying himself with the bottle of tequila he had snatched when Annie wasn't looking, and seemed to neither care nor notice what the rest of us were doing.
Fine, Annie said. So you went and got our daughter kidnapped, and now you want me to go to the netherworld to sort it all out for you? Is that it?
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, that's all. Wow, I'm so lucky that all you're asking for is for me to go to the netherworld and talk the most powerful being in existence giving up his only granddaughter. You do know why they call him Urznak the World Eater, right?
No, why?
Because he eats worlds.
I rubbed my eyes with my fingers and watched as the fireworks burst.
Look, I don't really see what other choice we have. We need a plan, Annie replied, and I know just where we can start.
It was early evening by the time Annie had taken us to her home and ushered us into her living room, seating us around a fold-out table she'd set up in the center. The warm yellow light of a desk lamp bathed the papers that had been haphazardly strewn about its surface. They were maps and schematics of the netherworld office building in which Urznak the World Eater resided. The lamplight reflected off of the table and lit our faces from below, making us all look even more tired and stressed out than we actually were.
The way I see it, there's only one way we can go about this. We sneak into the office and put Urznak back to sleep.
You can do that?
It's possible, but it won't be easy.
But how are we going to? I believe I have a solution. When I find I cannot sleep, the Lady Hatchetface sings lullabies to me. Momentarily distracted by Frankenteddy's revelation, I turned toward Miss Hatchetface and smiled.
You do that?
That's so sweet. Miss Hatchetface went a slightly deeper shade of red than she already was. Annie made a noise of disgust.
Hold on a second, she said. Are you boinking the nanny, Darren?
That is so cliché. Who or what I boink is none of your business, I replied, and Annie rolled her eyes.
Just not in my home, okay?
Don't worry about that. The sight of you pretty much killed my urge to boink. Frankenteddy looked at me, then Annie, then back to me. What is boink? It sounds like fun. You don't want to know, said Satan. And then, turning to the rest of us, he said,
Can we please get on with this? You all have no idea what this apocalypse has done to real estate prices in hell.
Is that really a pressing concern right now?
My daughter's trapped in the netherworld and who knows what's happening to her.
Well, not for you, but for those of us invested in the future of the greatest nation of all time? You mean America?
What?
No, hell. Annie was squinting her eyes and shaking her head. How do you guys get anything done? We don't really.
The CEO is more of a managerial role,
Satan added in, twirling a pen in his fingers and dropping it clumsily on the table.
Not a job where you actually do things.
Annie sighed and picked up a pen, stabbing at one of the blueprints that lay on the table.
This is where we need to enter, I can see you as far as the entrance to the netherworld, but after that, you're on your own. If Urznak finds me there, he'll eat the earth immediately. I'll have to stay here and hide. How are we going to find our way through the building without you? That's what all the maps are for.
Oh, right.
Look, it's simple,
Annie said, sliding the blueprint towards herself and marking it up with the pen.
This is the route you need to take.
She slid the blueprint back to the center of the table, and we all leaned over it. This route here.
Yeah. The one that starts at the door marked "Do Not Enter" and ends with the room labeled "Certain Death"? That's the one.
Okay, just checking.
But getting in is the easy part.
It is?
Yeah. After you're inside, you'll need to keep yourselves and the goat hidden to keep from setting off security.
Wait, there's a goat? Annie cocked her head and squinted at me, as if I had just asked her whether the sky really was, in fact, blue.
Of course there's a goat. What else would you sacrifice? I'm not really comfortable with the idea of sacrificing anything. Don't worry, the goat's used to it. It's his job. That really doesn't make me feel any better. Look, do you want Sarah back or not?
I sighed. Just get me the damn goat already. Larry Crowder, sacrificial specialist.
Annie had made a phone call, and the goat had shown up at the door in a suit and tie and black bowler hat. He made sure to hand out business cards to every person present that simply read, Larry Crowder, sacrificial specialist. The goat took off his coat and bowler hat, standing up on his hind legs to hang them from the rack before seating himself in a brown, overstuffed recliner.
So, he said in a deep, gravelly voice, I understand this is a netherworld job.
He reached inside the pocket of his suit jacket and pulled out a cigar and kerosene lighter.
He lit the cigar and puffed out a cloud of silvery blue smoke. I stared down at the ivory white business card in my hand. Annie was the first to speak.
Yeah, do you think you're up for it, Mr. Crowder?
You can call me Larry, he said.
He took another long draw of his cigar, leaving his face veiled behind the hazy blue wisp of smoke. He made no sign that he intended on answering. Listen, Larry, we're kind of in a hurry, so if you could...
Whoa there. Larry held up a hand to signal me to stop talking. I said the lady could call me Larry. It's still Mr. Crowder to you.
I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I just kept my mouth shut.
The way I see it, Larry said, leaning through the smoke so that we could all see his face. A netherworld job just isn't worth the risk. What's in it for me if I do this? I decided that now wasn't the time to bring up that his job was to get sacrificed.
Because if you don't, the world is going to end.
Which world?
What do you mean, which world? Earth.
Larry leaned back and took another puff on his cigar. Not my problem.
Not your problem?
I asked, dumbfounded. Do I look like I'm from Earth to you, boy?
Look, Larry, Annie said, shooting me a quick, dirty look. He didn't mean anything by it.
Larry scoffed.
Besides, Urznak the World Eater has awakened. You think he's really going to stop after he eats the earth? He'll come for the goat dimension next. You know he will.
Maybe, Larry said.
He narrowed his eyes and leaned back behind his veil of smoke.
I could see his black eyes glittering as he sat there puffing on his cigar, thinking. There was a long, pregnant pause before he said, Fine, I'll do it. The room breathed out a collective sigh of relief. Larry leaned over the side of the chair and began rummaging in his bag.
He pulled out a brown glass bottle with an ornate golden cap and set it on the table.
The label of the bottle bore the likeness of a goat with his eyes crossed out by bright red X's. Now, it's my custom before a job to get blind drunk, and you're all gonna join me.
Are you sure that's a good idea? I mean, we're going on a potentially world-saving mission tomorrow. Don't you think it's better if we all just get some sleep so we can be at our best? Larry rolled his eyes and uncapped the bottle. Ugh, this isn't like that poison you people drink on Earth. This is goat dimension liquor. It fortifies the mind and body. The morning after drinking this, you'll feel better than you've ever felt in your life. Really? Larry shrugged his shoulders. How should I know? It works on goats at least. Before I could respond to that, Annie was already on her feet with the bottle in her hands. I haven't had this stuff in ages, she said, taking a deep whiff of the liquor. I'll go get some glasses. She returned from the kitchen and plunked the glasses down in front of us on the fold-out table. She scooped up the bottle and poured us all a generous portion, careful not to splash any on the mats that still lay strewn about. She sat down in her own chair and drew in a deep whiff of her glass with a contented sigh. A toast, she insisted, raising her glass, to preventing the apocalypse. The second apocalypse, Satan corrected. My return counts as the first one, technically. Okay, said Annie, clearly eager to get drunk. Second apocalypse. We lifted our cups and clinked them together, and before I knew what had happened, most of the bottle was gone. What had started out as one drink to steady my nerves quickly became 2, and then 3, and soon the room was spinning at a dangerous velocity as the 5 of us downed glass after glass. Annie passed out in the corner. Frank and Teddy and Satan were competing to see who could blow the largest fireball, and Miss Hatchetface and I were giggling like schoolgirls as she sat on my lap. This stuff is really good, I slurred, after downing yet another glass of the concoction, which tasted like coffee liquor with a heavy helping of whipped cream. Of course it is, slurred Larry. It's goat dimension liquor. It tastes like whatever your favorite drink is. That's amazing, I replied, sliding out of the chair and onto the floor as Miss Hatchetface tried and failed to catch me. Hey, who put this floor here? I don't know. The builders, probably. I looked up to see somewhere between 2 and 3 Miss Hatchetfaces, each one blurrier than the next. Hey, I said, pointing an unsteady finger at her. How do you do that trick? What, stand? She laughed. I'm no stranger to goat dimension liquor. No, I meant what did I mean? Yes, stand. Miss Hatchetface threw her head back and laughed. This is a most wonderful feeling. It feels like my body is made of cotton candy. Give me more. Maybe you should slow down, said Miss Hatchetface. You've never even had alcohol before, much less goat dimension liquor. Nonsense, woman, shouted Frank and Teddy. I am a commander in Satan's demonic legion, and I want... Frank and Teddy's protestations were interrupted by a fierce torrent of orange-stained cotton. Did you just vomit cotton? What is cotton? Shouted Frank and Teddy. What you just vomited up, laughed Miss Hatchetface. It tastes horrible. Quickly, give me more liquor to wash the taste out of my mouth. Miss Hatchetface cocked an eyebrow and tried to suppress a grin. Frank and Teddy, I don't think that's a good idea. Don't listen to her. Have another glass. Larry rummaged in his suitcase and pulled out another bottle, tossing it to Frank and Teddy, who pulled out the cork and tossed it aside, upending the entire bottle into his mouth. Oh my, said Miss Hatchetface, covering her mouth and laughing. I am invincible. I am invincible. With that, he tilted over and slammed into the ground, the empty bottle rolling across the floor away from his outstretched paw. Is he dead? I asked. My question was answered by a resounding snore that sounded something like a garbage disposal with a spoon caught in it. I guess not. You can't die from goat dimension liquor, said Larry, rummaging in his bag for yet another bottle. He came up empty and kicked the bag aside.
Blast it. That overgrown Care Bear drank the last of my liquor.
That's terrible. Can we make some more?
Not unless you know how to harvest dreams, said Larry. Goat dimension liquor is made from dreams.
Oh, that's weird.
Frank and Teddy gave a particularly loud snort and I looked his way. He looked so peaceful as he lay there, his chest gently rising and falling in slow monotony.
He looked so warm and cuddly, I said to no one in particular. I think I'm going to curl up next to him.
I began to crawl across the floor towards Frank and Teddy, but my progress was arrested by two slender light pink legs. I looked up to see Miss Hatchetface standing above me and trying to stifle a giggle.
You may want to cuddle with him now, but tomorrow morning I think you'd rather wake up with me.
Oh, you're right about that. I managed to push myself a few inches off the floor before my arms gave out, and I collapsed face first into the carpet. I'd like to get up, but it seems like someone has turned my bones to jello. Can you scoop me up and put me in the bowl or bed?
Miss Hatchetface just laughed as she hitched her hands beneath my armpits and pulled me up, slinging me over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes, so that my head was dangling at eye level just above her butt.
Hey, it's a great view up here.
I'm glad you think so, said Miss Hatchetface, because there's only one part of you that goat dimension liquor doesn't turn to jello.
To the buffet. 5 a.m. saw me awaken to the sharp report of goat knuckles on my bedroom door. Annie had insisted I have the guest bedroom to myself and had relegated Miss Hatchetface to the living room couch. Miss Hatchetface had ignored this rule and now stood in front of the full-length mirror in her underwear, going through her morning primping routine. I rubbed the sleep out of my eyes and sat up. I'm awake, I shouted at the insistent knocking. Awake ain't ready, is it, boy? Larry's gruff voice called from the other side of the door. Get your walking shoes on and let's do this thing. I turned to Miss Hatchetface. Have you seen my shoes?
They're next to the bed.
Thanks. I reached down for one of the black leather loafers and hurled it at the door. The knocking stopped. Miss Hatchetface tried to give me a disapproving look, but failed and gave me a smile instead. When I finally did get my clothes on, I opened my door to the wafting smell of sizzling bacon and fresh cooked eggs. The dining room table had been cleared of maps and there was a huge array of plates piled high with bacon, scrambled eggs, and French toast, along with a giant jug of iced orange juice. Annie came out of the kitchen in a flour-stained apron with a big grin on her face. When she looked at me, Miss Hatchetface grabbed my arm and smiled back. Annie's grin grew wider, but it left her eyes.
I hope you two enjoyed the guest bedroom, she said through clenched teeth. I'm sorry if the couch wasn't to your liking, Miss Hatchetface. Oh, it was fine. Just not a lot of space to move around.
She slid her arm around the back of my waist, looked up at me, and winked. Annie's grin grew larger and colder yet.
Well, breakfast is ready. Are you much of a cook, Miss Hatchetface?
I dabble, Miss Hatchetface replied, looking at me expectantly. Oh, yeah. Miss Hatchetface is the best cook. She competed in Hell's Iron Chef contest. I tried not to gag as I remembered Miss Hatchetface's many failed attempts at reproducing human food. Attempts which often as not involved tentacles and green slime.
Oh, really?
Annie asked casually.
I think I saw you on that show. Isn't that the year half the judges died of explosive diarrhea?
Miss Hatchetface blushed and didn't reply, and we all sat down to a tense breakfast, in which Annie asked me how the food was about half a dozen times, and I replied about as diplomatically as I could to avoid igniting a war over bacon and eggs. After breakfast, Larry insisted on hitting the road immediately. We need to drive out to one of the existing netherworld portals in Florida, he explained. If Annie creates another one, they'll sense it and be on us in minutes.
Where's the closest portal? Miss Hatchetface asked. Mei Chinese buffet. They use the portal to import ingredients. Right, Annie said. I love that place's Kung Pao chicken. It's not chicken, Larry said. Well, I love that place's Kung Pao something. The sun was shining and the sky was blue and cloudless as we piled into the car and drove towards the Mei Chinese buffet. 5 minutes of driving later, we were pulling into the lot. We all clambered out of the car and made our way up to the front door of the restaurant and shambled in. The interior of the place was huge. The walls were decorated with murals of traditional Chinese art, and the foyer housed 2 cherry blossom trees, little pink flowers adorning the branches. The hostess was a beautiful Asian woman in a traditional Chinese dress, red silk adorned with glittering gold lotus blossoms. She stood behind a wooden stand and smiled at us as we approached. Can I help you? She asked. I need to speak to the owner, Larry said. The woman turned to Larry. Mr. Crowder, it's good to see you again. I wish I could say the same, but the last time I was here, you tried to put me in the egg rolls. The hostess shrugged. Some people like goat. What do you want with Mrs. Chen? We need to borrow your portal. Top secret netherworld business. What portal? You really want to play it like that? The portal you use to import ingredients. The hostess shrugged again. I don't know what you're talking about, she said with poorly feigned innocence. All of our ingredients are ethically sourced from local farms. Why, you... I cleared my throat. Can we please hurry this up? There's a lot at stake here, and we really don't care what's in your egg rolls. We just want to get to the netherworld as soon as possible. And what's in it for me? The hostess asked. Miss Hatchetface crossed her arms over her chest and narrowed her eyes. If you don't help us, then I'll put you in the egg rolls, she said in a tone that brooked no argument. The hostess wrinkled up her nose and ever so slightly bowed, putting on a plastic customer service smile. Right this way. She led us through the restaurant, past lacquered rosewood tables piled high with food, and back through large double doors to the kitchen. The portal isn't here, she said, pointing to a huge walk-in freezer. You first, said Larry. The hostess's smile became wider and more plastic. Of course, she said, pulling the large steel door to the walk-in freezer open and strolling inside. We crammed ourselves into the cooler and the heavy door slammed shut behind us. The hostess turned and smiled, but this time there was a hint of genuine amusement in her eyes. I don't get it, Satan said. Where's the portal? Right here, the hostess said, flicking a switch on the wall. And suddenly the ground was gone, and we were all tumbling through the dark. The netherworld. That bitch! Satan yelled, picking himself up off the ground. Miss Hatchetface was already up and staring at the sky, a huge canopy of black on which drifted winking purple stars. She shut the portal behind us. There's no getting back that way. She dumped me in as well, Annie said, unruffling her pants. If Erznog finds out I'm here, he'll destroy the world immediately. We need to keep a low profile. Uh-huh, Satan said. What? Huh. Which one do you think he'll destroy first? Hell or Earth? Did you really just ask that? Satan shrugged. Larry sighed and pulled an object from his pocket. It was a smooth sphere of blood-red glass. Tiny pinpricks of light shone from within, floating like fireflies suspended in water. The pattern of light seemed to mean something to Larry, because he stuffed it back in his pocket and pointed straight ahead. It's that way. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go. Not so fast. We need to split up. Are you kidding? Look, Larry, I don't know what things are like in the goat dimension, but on Earth we have these things called horror movies, and the number one lesson in all of them is to never split up. We don't have a choice,
Once we make the sacrifice, we'll have to make a quick getaway. I can lead us to Uznok, but someone has to locate a portal and stay there. The location will read on my thingamajig." "Your what?" "The thing that tells me where to go. It senses netherworld magic, so Annie is the one who needs to locate the portal, and Frank and Teddy will go with her." Annie eyed Frank and Teddy doubtfully. "Why doesn't Darren come?" she asked. "Because I said so, and I'm running this operation." "Fine, but Frank and Teddy? Really? I'd be better off alone." "Our mission requires subtlety and subterfuge, and there's nothing subtle about a 7-foot teddy bear. Frank and Teddy goes with you, and not with us." "Well, you're the operational expert." Larry fished a cigar out of his jacket pocket and stuffed it in his mouth. "Damn right, and don't you forget it." And so, despite my protests, we split up, and Frank and Teddy and Andy wandered off alone into the darkness of the netherworld, while we went in search of Uznok.